was trying to hide away, ashamed of the light of day. Made a choice, thinking I'd be free, but that choice, it imprisoned me in my shame. Till I stepped into the light of God's love, the healing began. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes. I will be silent no more. Love broke through to the heart of me. Now the truth has come and set me free from the past. When I stepped into the light of God's love, forgiven at last. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes. I will be silent no more. There is power in my story, freedom from this night. There is healing and forgiveness if we step into the light. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes. I will be silent no
Well, good evening. This is Janet Morana, the Executive Director of Priest Life. I also co-founded the Silent No More Awareness Campaign, and you just heard that beautiful song, those of you who came in a few minutes early. And, you know, that song was written specifically for the Silent No More Awareness Campaign by a very popular Christian songwriter. So we were very privileged that she was so inspired by the campaign to write that song for us. It's a real gift. But this is April. And I know everyone thinks about, oh, it's Easter, it's spring. But here it is Abortion Recovery Awareness Month. This is a very, very special live broadcast we're bringing to you this evening. And during the broadcast, a little bit later, you're going to have a chance to ask questions to some of the top experts who are helping people recover from the damage abortion has done to their lives. We're talking about mothers, fathers, grandparents, future siblings. Everyone is impacted. And so we're here tonight to bring that hope and healing message to you. We have so much information to share. So I got a great panel, and we're going to introduce them now to you. All right. We have Dr. Theresa Burke, the founder of Rachel's Vineyard. Theresa, welcome to the program.
So nice to be here.
Okay. Then we have Dr. Martha Shuping, psychiatrist, who has given not just her practice, but her life to the healing and very involved with Rachel's Vineyard Ministry. Dr. Shuping, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And finally, Sheila Harper, the founder of Save One, an international abortion recovery program that you're going to learn a lot about. So, ladies, we look like the Hollywood Squares. We have all four of us on the screen, and we're going to start with, and I'm going to be very formal now. I know you all like sisters, but I'm going to read your formal bios, okay? Because you ladies are just such experts. I want everyone to hear some of this stuff. So, Dr. Theresa Burke is the founder of Rachel's Vineyard. Oh my goodness, Theresa, I think that was about 30 years ago. Okay.
40.
A program for healing after abortion. And I've known Theresa that long, so that makes us both, I don't know, good girlfriends. Anyway, she also founded Grief to Grace, which addresses all forms of abuse, including sexual abuse. She also founded another program called Duty to Heal for spiritual and psychological trauma suffered by combat veteran and first responded. Offer in group retreat formats. These unique and empirically validated ministries use creative living scripture exercises coupled with group exercises, prayer, therapeutic facilitation, cognitive restructuring, and discussions. They provide an effective process for grief work grounded in the Word of God and as an exceptional and effective recovery process for victims of trauma and people who have spent years in talk therapy but still struggle to move beyond their traumatic experience. Combined, these ministries are offered in 35 languages in more than 50 countries. And Dr. Burke provides clinical training for clergy, because I know we have clergy joining us tonight. So you heard that, clergy, training for you, and the religious to equip them for post-abortion and other trauma-related counseling. So Dr. Burke, we're going to go to you first. You'll be the first one to speak, approximately 10 minutes. And I know you're all prepped for what to tell us. So you have the floor, Dr. Burke.
Oh, goodness. Well, I think what you asked me to talk about is the importance of healing. And it's incredibly important to heal because traumatic experiences have greatly distorted the moral compass of our times. And I think that we see evidence of that just about everywhere. The truth has been turned on its head in many ways. And if we're even to look at the statistics of mental illness in our country, it's about 1 in 5 Americans are suffering from some form of mental illness. Anxiety disorders and depression are kind of at the lead of that. There's 42.2 million Americans who suffer from those illnesses, and over 6 million men in the United States experience depression every year. And I think, knowing from 40 years, it's been 40, not 30, since I started all this, but hard to believe I'm that old now. But in all those years, we also see the drug overdoses in epidemic proportion any other illnesses. So it's a serious time, and the world needs healing. And it's accurate to say, I think, that this culture of death has led to what we recognize as a traumatized culture. The trauma kind of reigns over the world right now, not just from wars and genocide and all that, but even we could see evidence of this even in the politics, the way the world is polarized, the way that people, and the tragedy is that people lose the image of God in themselves and they turn into survivors. And a survivor is a very dysregulated nervous system that is constantly being hijacked from the present moment into fight or flight behaviors, and also shutting down, numbing out, disconnecting and dissociating. So I think that we see that. And when a person has been injured by abortion, when a mother or a father has suffered the loss of their child in an abortion, it does impact not only their mental health, but their future capacity to trust and to welcome children in the world. We know this from plenty of research. There's a lot of ambivalence about parenthood, and there's many people who continue to justify rather than grieve, rather than heal. And there's a lot of politics that actually obstruct that as well. So I feel that we're living in a world that makes it difficult, but there's so much hope because everyone watching this and all the post-abortion groups that are out there in the world, they're growing. For when I started it, there was nothing. And I've really seen not just the culture change, but the politics around this just go up and down like a roller coaster. And I think that this is a great time to heal, because even the overturning of Roe has triggered many women into healing, because what they were watching on the TV and the screaming marches, they didn't identify with. They recognized their grief. And when we can't, even in wars, there's triggers all over the place when we're seeing, hearing about many babies killed in like Israel and Palestine and in the Ukraine war. It's just, we're seeped in triggers. And when people are triggered and they don't have a path to heal, or someone to tell them that there's healing, or someone to listen to their story without judging, accepting however they survived it, because people go into a survivor mode. And when you're in a survivor mode, you're not living your life, and you're certainly not living out the vocation and the use of all your gifts. You become pretty miserable and pretty angry, or shut down. So this is why there's a need for healing. And those who are healed rise up to be the mighty army of dead bones, if I could say it that way, that they are renewed in such a way that they recognize the gift not only of all children, but also of their own lives. And then you have some very incredible leadership taking place. People are able to fulfill the vocations that they've been gifted for when they're released from the shame and the grief and the survivor mode. So these are just really exciting times. Being in healing ministry, I can't think of many ministries, I can't think of any better use of my time, honestly, because when it's a lot of effort and everything, but when you see people walk away transformed, there's no better way for me to spend my time. I say that with our team, like, wow, what we just experienced. And this is why we have in Rachel's Vineyard over 500,000 volunteers involved with Rachel's Vineyard. And that's statistics from a few years ago. It's probably more now. And they've become the leaders of these other programs, helping the war veterans, working with the sexual abuse and all the other abuse programs, because they've cracked open that jar of gifts. They've poured their ointment forth for the world, so that they can be a blessing and lead others into healing and let them experience the joy and the freedom from trauma, which is, no one can really understand that unless you've experienced trauma, what it feels like to be unshackled from it. And what's not transformed is then transmitted into the next generation, into everything. Go ahead, Jenna, sorry.
Yeah, so Theresa, could you just tell them, because they must be wondering, Rachel's Vineyard, a retreat weekend. So for someone who's listening right now, maybe they know a family member, or they themselves have been struggling now with this after effect of abortion, and no one understands how they're feeling. Can you just give a brief snapshot of what happens on a Rachel's Vineyard weekend, starting from Friday to Sunday? Just tell them briefly, because that might ease their anxiety right now to say, should I really do this? So invite them into a window of Rachel's Vineyard.
Well, a window would be that it's a intensive, we call it a therapy for the soul. It goes very deep. And we use a sensory-based treatment, which is specifically designed for traumatic experience, to help you engage in activities and without words and somatic exercises to, first of all, recognize the trauma in your body and to be able to release it. Because we know from brain scans of victims of trauma, just talking about it can create the fight or flight. And so we weave in and out with exercises to help calm and ground people in meditation, in weaving in and out of the trauma. And I think that the group process is extremely powerful because everybody there has suffered the same injury. They've expressed it in different ways. They've struggled in different ways, but it's really giving yourself permission to grieve, to recognize the loss and the impact that it's had on you. And there's a spiritual component, which is why we call it therapy for the soul, which is really where you learn to, I think that for people who have a sense of God, they know that God forgives them, but they can't forgive themselves, or they're so angry at the people who, maybe perhaps pressured them, which is about 65% of women. And the moral injury that they've suffered themselves because abortion for many was incompatible with their beliefs and even their values. So to be able to reclaim who they were in light of what happened to them, instead of identifying as the trauma, because I think that's what people do today. They identify themselves by the bad things that have happened to them. So it may distort our reality, but it doesn't change who we are.
So I'm going to stop right there, Theresa, and I want to tell our listeners here, if you have a question for Dr. Burke, you can start submitting them now, because my producer will get them all queued up. And once all these experts make their presentations, then we're going to take your questions, and we're really going to help you unpack all the information you're getting here. All right, so next up, another expert is Dr. Martha Shuping, who I also have known her for a long time, but I'm going to read an official thing here. She's a medical doctor specializing in psychiatry and also has an MA in pastoral ministry from the University of Dayton. She completed Harvard Medical School's Global Clinical Scholars Research Training, a one-year research training program, and also has a certificate in trauma and recovery from Harvard Medical School. She teaches psychology at Belmont Abbey College. She has been helping women and men to recover from the effects of abortion since 1985. She has led more than 50 Rachel's Vineyard retreats and has experience with the Save One program. She has been involved in research on abortion recovery programs. And Dr. Shuping, you now have the floor. Dr. Shuping, we can't hear you. Don't mute yourself. Unmute.
Got it. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, go.
Yes. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight was the research showing how effective these abortion recovery programs are, and particularly Rachel's Vineyard and Save One, which are two that I've worked with where there is a body of research. And so starting with Rachel's Vineyard, I was privileged to be able to supervise a doctoral student who was getting her doctorate in ministry, and she wanted to do before and after psychological testing related to Rachel's Vineyard, just so that we could show people, yes, it really does help. So Theresa was talking about trauma symptoms and people being so very traumatized. We gave people a test at the beginning of the retreat, actually at 7 different retreat sites in the US and Canada. We gave women a test to show what their trauma symptoms were at the start, and then afterwards to see whether they'd improved. And 2 of the main important clusters of trauma symptoms, one is hyperarousal, which I think of as being jazzed up on too much bad energy. And so these are people who might have road rage or get angry easily. And Theresa had mentioned anger. And, just anger and too much energy to be able to sleep at night, having nightmares, just, bad energy. And so that's one thing, that's hyperarousal, and also avoidance, because it's so upsetting and distressing to be around any reminders of the trauma. So if the abortion was your trauma or any other reproductive loss, when you see babies, even your own baby, like, I can't do this, I can't be around a baby. Or if your husband if the husband and wife were part of the abortion for each other, they may feel like they need to be away from the other person. And so that's a problem in the relationship. Could be that they can't go for gynecology care because being on the table and seeing the instruments and things, it just reminds you and you can't do it. So there are many things. It might be you just can't drive by the abortion clinic, but often there's avoidance. So what we saw was very highly significant reductions for the Rachel's Vineyard between the before and the after in those two kinds of symptoms. Less hyperarousal, statistically significant, less avoidance, statistically significant. We also saw shame being greatly reduced with Rachel's Vineyard. And there was another study by a different researcher, a social worker, Susan Layer, who published in a peer-reviewed journal, and she found that for Rachel's Vineyard, there was decreased shame after the weekend, and it was statistically significant. So I think that's important. There's some other research on Rachel's Vineyard that I'm going to get to just for a moment, but with Save One, the student that I was working with wanted to evaluate Save One, and data was turned in from maybe a few groups that had just a small number of women, and it wasn't enough for her project. And the statistical consultant said, no, don't use that. It's just too small. But the statistical consultant at the same time was blown away by seeing similar results to Rachel's Vineyard, even though it was only a small number. It reached statistical significance. I think that's important. So I would like in future to do more research on this, but basically it's a program that's going to help both Rachel's Vineyard and Save One help to reduce the trauma symptoms and the shame, and that's important. And I think with Rachel's Vineyard, we also saw an improvement in self-esteem. But one of the earlier studies that I had done, we did a survey just to find out who's coming to Rachel's Vineyard and are they having benefit. And we sent this out to a number of retreat leaders in 22 different states. And we said, send this to your people and to alumni of the retreat. If you've got contact information, we gave like each one 10 studies or 10 surveys to hand out. And so we had data from 241 people, and some men, but mainly women. And we asked them, we weren't trying to find out how much trauma were they well to start with, and it was just kind of fluff that they didn't really need the retreat, or did they have serious symptoms? And what we found was, we said, after the abortion and before you went on the retreat, did you ever have mental health treatment? 70% said yes. Did you ever have suicidal thoughts? 65% said yes. Did you ever cut yourself? 9% said yes. Did you have problems with alcohol or drug abuse? And that was almost half, 48.5%. So this was a group of people that, in this case, not everybody has those kinds of problems when they come on the retreat. People are at different levels, but certainly a lot of people had some significant problems, and yet the retreat didn't harm them. We asked them, give it a negative number, just like in the algebra class, negative number if it hurt you and the retreat was bad for you, give it a 0 if it just totally did nothing, or give it a number from 1 through 5 if it really helped you. And the average was 4.75. The lowest rating we had was a 3. There were no negative numbers, no zeros. Everybody reported in this group, they reported that they were helped, and very much. So 4.75, most of the numbers were 4s or 5s, a lot of 5s there. And I just think, it is a program that people really like. And, they feel like they benefit. And I sent my own patients because I feel like I'm a reasonably good therapist, but I had a lot of people in my practice who'd had abortions and were really suffering. And yet they were struggling with even being able to talk about it and not really knowing what to say and just really having difficulty. And when Theresa Burke came to do our first retreat, I put my own people into the retreat, and I went along to see how everybody did. And it was amazing because it was really life-changing for people who had very difficult problems. So I feel like it's safe for anybody. It's safe for people who have severe symptoms. And obviously, if it's just, just feeling that some spiritual gap, I think it makes a difference for people, whatever level. But the thing is, everybody bonds together as sisters in Christ. And some of the important things I think that I noticed, and that was important to my patients, Theresa always would say, nobody's forced to do anything. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. We're not going to make you talk. You can just say pass. You don't have to participate. But the more you do, the more you will heal. And that is so true. So there's no pressure on anybody. And it is absolutely no judging. And I think that's really important for people to know. There's just absolutely not. And every team is supposed to have someone on hand who has had an abortion. So you have team members, you have volunteers who've had abortions themselves, have been through it. And then you have other people who haven't had abortions, and there's balance. And so you're not being judged by anybody. We're just there to be your sister in Christ and help you heal. And I think it's so important too. I've got to say, the faith-based programs are important because David Reardon has done research showing, very recent, very good research showing that about 66% of women who are having abortions are violating their own preferences and their own value system, that somebody else thought it was a good idea. Their mother, their boyfriend, their husband, somebody else didn't want them to have their baby, and they went along. There may have been, because domestic violence often can enter in, and they're really forced, but for whatever reason, they're making choices that are not their values, and then they feel separated from God. People believe they've committed the unforgivable sin, and it doesn't help them if you just teach them to say, oh, I'm a good person or something, if they feel separated from God and they feel like there's no road back, they're not going to be healed until that step is taken. So every good post-abortion program is going to have something to help you with your relationship with God to really be restored, something to help you. The majority of women actually bond to their child early in pregnancy. Even if they're having an abortion, there's some bonding that goes on. And it's partly mediated through the hormone oxytocin, which is a bonding hormone that's present during pregnancy. And so because the bonding is an issue, you have to do grief work to heal with the abortion and to recognize that you have a child who forgives you, who's under the care of Jesus, who's never known anything but love. And so you get to deal with that issue. You also, if there was coercion from somebody else, hurt by other people, you are helped to be able to forgive, because when you hold on to that bitterness, you're the one who gets hurt. If your hands are closed in a fist, holding on to the anger, the bitterness, you're not free to receive the gifts that God has for you. And God has so much, because we just see those gifts of healing being poured out at the retreats, and certainly through Save One as well, through these good abortion recovery programs. God just pours out graces and graces of healing. And so then the last thing is that they all help women to reclaim their self-esteem, just as we saw with that before and after testing that we did with Rachel's Vineyard and with Save One. And so I just recommend both programs to anyone who has a need. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes people want to go through both programs. They'll go through Rachel's Vineyard and they find, oh, that really took care of so many layers of things. But maybe there's some piece where they just really would like to do a Bible study and just have something to continue their healing and growth. And there's no comparison. They both accomplish many of the same things. And the Holy Spirit is present in both. And psychologically, they're just very powerful. So I would just encourage anyone, if you have friends who have this need, if you have family members who you know have this need, if it's you, because like I think, Theresa, you were saying that so many people are affected, and it's not only the individual, but family members may be affected by an abortion. And, it's open to anyone, both programs. So I think that's what I have for you tonight. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shuping. I want to remind everyone, keep sending my producers queuing up your questions. So when each of these experts has given their piece, we're going to then open the floor here. And you're going to have an opportunity to ask any one of them or all of them your great questions. So they're starting to come in. Keep them coming. And I just want to make one comment here before I go to Sheila, is that all of these programs that we're highlighting this evening are for mothers who have lost children to abortion, fathers, grandparents, even future siblings are affected. So all of those people groups are basically been impacted by the death of that baby, and they're welcomed on all these recovery programs. So we hope you're identifying with that fact, that you're being invited to come to healing. And if you know someone who needs healing, there's a simple website you can go to, abortionforgiveness.com. That's abortionforgiveness.com. Just put in your zip code and you'll see where the nearest Rachel's Vineyard and Save One programs are to where you live. Or maybe you have someone, a family member, a friend lives in another state. You don't know what's going on over there. Again, abortionforgiveness.com. Put in that zip code and you could be that ambassador to help that friend or relative get the healing they need. So now we're going to go to our next expert tonight. And again, I'm just going to read it. It's Sheila Harper, another dear friend of mine. Is the founder and president of Save One, a global outreach ministry helping men, women, and families recover after abortion. She holds a master's degree in biblical counseling, is a certified mental health coach with the American Association of Christian Counselors, and is the author of 12 books. Oh my gosh, Sheila, I don't know how you had time to write 12 books. Her first book, Save One, The Women's Study, has been translated and distributed in 23 languages. I've read all of her Bible study programs. They are fantastic. And so now, Sheila, you have the floor.
Well, I am so thrilled to be here and so honored to be on a show with two people I admire so much, Dr. Martha and Dr. Theresa, and then, of course, you, Janet. So I am thrilled to be here, all the way here from Nashville, Tennessee, as you could tell by my accent. So is we help men, women, and families recover after abortion because we believe and have seen for the last 25 years that we have been in existence. And I have a hard time believing I'm this old too, that I've been doing this for 25 years. But we have seen that our society oftentimes has been indoctrinated to think that this is just a woman's issue, when it is literally a family crisis in our generation. So when we first started Save One, I wrote that first study, and we were helping people in churches and starting chapters. And a chapter is just a church or a pregnancy center that's teaching our Bible study. So we started helping women. As women were coming out of this Bible study and talking openly of what they did, this is the choice I made, this is what I went through, but this is what God did for me. It started breaking down the stigma in this church. Finally, a man was watching, and he came up to me and asked if he could go through the women's Bible study. And I remember just looking at him like, I don't know what I'm going to do with him. I had never once thought a man may suffer after an abortion, because we've all been indoctrinated to think it's her body, it's her choice, and nobody else can talk about it. So I said yes, because who am I to say no? I'm not going to help you. So he came through the study. The very next time we offered the study, another man asked to go through the women's Bible study. So my husband and I finally got a clue. We collaborated on a men's study. We started helping men and women. So as men and women were coming out of this study, talking openly about what God had done for them, then we started having grandparents and siblings, just like you guys have been talking about. They suffer. I saw from my own abortion at 19, I saw my family suffer. So I wrote a third Bible study called The Ripple Effect, and all three of these Bible studies mirror each other. So a family can go through the study together, or you can hold one abortion recovery group and invite anybody who is abortion wounded. But we are extremely passionate about this subject, and we've dedicated our lives to it because of my own abortion pain that I mentioned earlier that I had at 19. I went through 7 years of hell on earth after I made that choice. I believed what the politicians and the celebrities were telling me. At the time, the Supreme Court had said it's okay. And so I just thought, okay, well, it didn't feel right inside, but I went ahead and made that decision anyway. And I spent the next 7 years just trying to get back to myself before I made that choice. And I realize now the aftermath of abortion cuts so much deeper and is so much more cruel than other sinful choices that we make. And that's because when we were created as men and women and as mothers and fathers, we were created, placed within us was a nature to nurture and protect our children. We were never created to choose death for our children. And so when we make that decision, when we make that horrible decision as death for our children, we do not have within us the mental, the spiritual, or the emotional capacity to deal with the aftermath because it was never in our nature. Just like Dr. Theresa was saying, it's a moral injury. It goes against everything within us that we were created to be as a woman and as a man, as a mother and a father. And so because we don't have that capacity to deal with the aftermath because we were never created to make that choice, you find yourself in this cycle of trying to find yourself again, dealing with a problem on a human level that is only fixable through a divine intervention. And so we feel extremely passionate about it and feel that abortion recovery is the greatest deterrent to abortion that we have, because the people who know the truth are the ones who should be in our communities telling that truth. But you can't really go tell that truth until you've had that moment of where you lay it down, you own what you did, whether you were forced, coerced, whatever, just recognizing what happened to you, and then allowing God to heal that part of your heart. Because you can never get back to that person you were until you submit that to Jesus Christ. And so we focus fully on the church, the local church. And a lot of times people say, oh, they're not going to talk about abortion in the church. But what we have found is that the church is waking up, the church with a capital C, not one particular denomination, but just the church of Jesus Christ is waking up and recognizing that politics is never going to fix this problem for us. We have to fight it through politics. We can't opt out of that process. But at the same time, the real power is in the people of Jesus, the church of Jesus, and working through that system. Because honestly, the numbers are so unbelievably high of the number of people who are affected by this one issue that the church is really the only entity to hold the numbers of people who are suffering. And so it's just it's a beautiful process, whether you're going to a Rachel's Vineyard retreat or you're going to a Save One Bible study or many of the other several dozen abortion recovery programs. Just submitting that wound, having that confidential, safe, judgment-free place to finally lay it down with people who know what you're going through. It makes all the difference in the world. It's exactly what happened to me. I knew on the very first night when I ended up in a Bible study, a lot like the one Save One offers, that this was different, because everyone there was telling my story. And I had been told that abortion was no big deal. It was my right. It was health care. You know, that's what I had been told. But I knew that was not what was competing or computing on the inside of me. And so to go to a Bible study with like-minded people and them finally understand exactly what this feels like is an absolutely liberating moment like nothing else. And so I'm so thankful for programs like Rachel's Vineyard. I'm so thankful to have dedicated my life to Save One and starting chapters all over the world. We have over 400 locations in 27 nations around the world. And I mean, when you see the size of Save One and Rachel's Vineyard, you recognize we could have never manufactured these numbers. We could have never done that. It shows the incredible need in our world for recovery from this one issue. We like to call it, we're raising this army of truth tellers who are no longer willing to be silent about this issue. And I truly believe audaciously that we can make abortion unthinkable even before it becomes illegal in all 50 states.
Well, Sheila, thank you for all that great insight. Now, we're going to start getting our questions. My producer's going to load them up for me because they're coming in fast and furious. Let's see. The first one comes from Andrea, and Andrea Jean Agnes, her full name. And it says, I wonder what is the best age for people to go to the retreat? I guess that's for you, Theresa. And what average age are the participants normally on a Rachel's Vineyard retreat? So, Theresa, could you handle that question?
Oh my gosh, we get all ages. We had a special form for people under age 18 because you need parental consent or caregiver's consent. Otherwise, you can get in trouble if you didn't know that. But all the way up to in the 90s, we've had the whole range of ages. And I think that it used to be I right now, because of the triggering, there's a lot of early day feminists who are much older now, who are coming in droves. I've never seen this many older women before as now. And I think that has to do with the triggering up, sort of like pricking the conscience of the world when Roe was overturned, just to have them question and then hear all the rhetoric. So, that has been a big upswing. But more because there's so much more awareness, thanks to things like Silent No More awareness and people freed to give their testimonies. There's a lot more information about it. But I will say that the internet scrubs things quickly, and there's a lot of control over that. And so are documented studies. There's a lot of politics involved in that, where things are even removed off the internet because they don't want it to look like there's any controversy whatsoever, or that the research is there. But I like to say that we're addressing global mourning, and all over the world. And I think that's a huge mission. It's a huge mission field. There's no greater area for evangelization because of the brokenness. And God is a God of healing. He wants to mend our broken hearts. He wants to restore us and renew us. That is his will for our lives, that we would be able to trust him with our wounds, because he's, that's where you see all the miracles, because when people reach out to him, he's right there, just waiting, right there, just waiting to, heal them. So,
All right. Great response, Theresa. Another question that just came in, Theresa, for you also. It says, my friend was forced to have an abortion in high school by her mom. She went to a Rachel's Vineyard retreat when she was in high school. However, later in life, she still has issues. Is it common to need a second retreat later in life? Theresa?
Well, I think that you can feel good in a moment, and life brings more challenges. So healing for anybody with trauma in their background can be an ongoing thing, because perhaps after the retreat, other life events, maybe a struggle with infertility, maybe a miscarriage, maybe seeing other children that are the age that yours would have been. There's so many things that life brings that make it an issue. And that's why, nobody should ever feel that they've arrived, because God wants to bless us and bless us. So a lot of people get this idea that I'm good, like I'm okay, I did that thing and I feel better, I checked that box. But they don't realize that when there's more hurt come forward, or maybe a marriage that dissolves later, or you picked the wrong partner because you were feeling like you needed to punish yourself, which we hear about that. Like you feel like you don't deserve anything better. But as life goes on, wisdom increases, and so can triggers, as other things can remind you of this very profound loss, because it is a very profound loss that kind of follows you as your children would be growing. Or I hear a lot from women that are older. They have no kids to take care. They retire. They don't have their glorious career, and they're so lonely. And everybody else has, kids helping them, and, maybe a daughter moving in with them. And just there's care around, there's love around, there's family around. And without family, I feel it's such a great poverty and a tremendous suffering, tremendous suffering.
Right. All right. Now we have a question from a Reverend Scott. And Sheila, this is for you, because you said, our Save One program is to be used in churches. It can be used in churches, and how you establish chapters in churches. So Reverend Scott wants to know, is that just for Protestant churches and evangelical churches, or is it Catholic churches, or any church? So in other words, because we have clergy tuning in here right now, and I guess they want to know, what should they do if they want to talk to you more? Maybe you and your husband, Jack, coming to their church and establishing a Save One there, a Bible study. And is it for all denominations? Of course, the body of Christ. So can you answer that, Sheila?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you could go to saveone.org. There's different inquiries that you can make. Look at everything that you're curious about. But then also, we are not affiliated with one particular denomination. And we did that on purpose, because we want to leave it open to be ecumenical. So we have chapters in Catholic dioceses. We have chapters in Church of God churches, in Assemblies of God, Baptist, Lutheran. It's literally just the Word of God focused like a laser beam on that wound that abortion leaves you with. And so it's not a doctrinal, theological thing, but just a Word of God thing. And so to be a chapter, we have many different ways that we train. You can purchase streaming videos. We could come there in person and train your whole staff. But then after that, we list you on our website and you just offer our Bible studies. You can see them right there. We have them in 23 different languages. And then we also have a sexual trauma recovery Bible study as well called Finding You. That's right there. So we train in all of that. We have made it as easy as possible and as cost effective as possible to make sure, because we just want churches doing abortion recovery, because we want to point people to the local church, not to save one, but to the local church.
Right. That's great, Theresa. Sheila. Okay, so you guys go to saveone.org, and right there they can request you to come to their church, right, to get things going. Yes. Or, like you said, there is also an online way to do it, because I know your schedule. I think you and your husband, you're on the road more than you're at home these days, yeah. Aren't you?
Yes.
Right? All right. And then we had another question. If my producer could show that to me about, I think it was drug abuse. And I think it's for Dr. Yeah, here we go. Walter. He said, this is for Dr. Shuping. You mentioned that drug and alcohol use is reported at 48%. Can that feeling of well-being is replaced without prescription pain and depression medication? In other words, are they leading to alcohol to numb the pain as opposed to prescription drugs? And so for Dr. Shuping, as a psychiatrist, what do you see? Walter wants to know, what do you see as the trend, and what can you say about that in your experience, in your practice?
Okay. Well, I have known women who went on a Rachel's Vineyard retreat and they had alcohol problems, but they didn't disclose it. But they came and they did the retreat. And later, I have heard women say, I've tried everything before and I could not stop the alcohol use. I could not stop the drug use. And now that wound is healed, I don't need that anymore and I'm able to. But that would be something where, for instance, if it came up, if they had discussed that's how I cope with the abortion, then we would talk about on Sunday morning when we plan for aftercare, we might talk about, well, I wonder if you would want to go to AA, or would you want to go to a rehab program if you're really struggling with the alcohol part. But here's the thing, with trauma, the parts of the brain that are affected by trauma also are able to be medicated and calmed to some extent by the alcohol, but it's a very bad process. If you're having nightmares and you can't sleep at night, you may use alcohol to go to sleep, but then you're setting yourself up for addiction, and that leads to other problems, and you're a mess. And so dealing with the trauma is the big thing, but the substance use goes very much hand in hand with trauma, unfortunately, as an important way that people unfortunately deal with trauma. If the trauma is relieved, they don't have to do it that way. Now, whether they need prescription medicine is really a separate issue in a way that I don't recommend. Like if somebody's already on medicine for depression or bipolar disorder or something, I wouldn't recommend it at a retreat. Oh, well, you don't need your medicine anymore, because there are brain changes that go on that you can actually make scans of people's brains when they have a major mental illness. Now, some people, they don't have a major mental illness. It may just be, spiritual wounding from trauma. And that's one thing. But sometimes people really do need medicine. So it's not just that the retreat should have any bearing, in a sense, that many people will become more well and may need less medicine and certainly be able to let go of addictions. But on the other hand, there may be a genuine need for antidepressant medicine. And so that's something, hopefully, if you've got a good psychiatrist, they can make those evaluations. So there's not one answer for that.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we're going to switch gears here. A couple of questions keep popping up, and they're pretty similar. So what I'm going to do is give each one of you a chance to kind of say what you have to say about this. So a couple of people are asking, how does this work if a woman who's lost a child to abortion, and there's men on that retreat also with the women. Okay, so you have men and women on, say, a Save One Bible study or a Rachel's Vineyard retreat. And how does that dynamic work? Do the women feel uncomfortable because there's guys there? How do the guys relate if the women are there? And then, so for many of them, like for the women, they don't even know the guy anymore who is the father of their aborted baby. And for these men, as you know, many of them, got a girl pregnant in high school or college, but there's no relationship with that person anymore. But they now regret, what they did way back then. And that usually comes to fruition for guys when they eventually marry, and now they're having what everyone's telling them is their first child, and they will go, bingo. No, I guess I got that girl pregnant, so this is not my first. So I'm going to go back to each one of you, and if you could comment on those things I said, because what I did was there was about 5 or 6 questions here circling around these things. So I kind of condensed them into one big fat question for all of you. Okay. So I'll start, Sheila, with you, because I know you and your husband, Jack, work together with groups. So first to Sheila, then we'll go to Theresa, and then Martha, as the psychiatrist here on board, you'll wrap it up for us. Okay. So let's start with Sheila. Go ahead.
Well, to answer that question, when we first started and we were just helping women, and that man asked to go through the study, I didn't have anything separate for him. I had to give him a book with pink flowers on the front and tell him to change the pronouns to fit him. I had no idea what to expect. I already had 8 women signed up for that class. And so I went to those 8 women and I said, listen, are you guys comfortable with letting this man come in? Because I don't want to tell him no, but I can't meet with him one-on-one. And so little by little, they all opened to the idea. I had no idea what to expect. He came in, he sat there week after week, and watching these women see his pain and then him seeing their pain, it was like they saw a whole new perspective, a whole other side to this issue. And to me, it felt like the healing was deeper because it wasn't just one side of the issue. They were able to see each other's side. And I believe it helped those women forgive the men that were with them, or, whatever their situation was, because this man was in the class. And so at the end of that first class, he went around and told each woman what she meant to him, how her healing helped him. And so it was just beautiful. And so ever since that very first class, I've been a huge advocate of just inviting anyone who is abortion wounded and having them all in the same class, because you see every aspect and you get the full spectrum, the full picture of what happens after an abortion. And so I think it's beautiful. I've had a lot of people say, how can you do that? How can you bring the men in? But I'm telling you, it works. It's not even a question now. Like, we have chapters that, it's not, they don't know anything different. Just anybody who is abortion wounded. And my husband being on staff, he's a strong advocate, and he takes care of all the men's side of this. So it's beautiful. And then the grandparents and the siblings and everybody. So it's just really cool.
That's great. Okay, now we'll go to Dr. Theresa Burke. Same insight. What can you tell us?
Well, ditto everything you just said, Sheila, of course. And I think that what most people might be concerned about is that the presence of a man could be a trigger, because it would remind them that they hate men. And I think that when men come on a retreat, I'll echo that what Sheila said, that it is the most profound healing experience of a woman's relationship with man, because you have one man, you can paint, or a couple of bad relationships, you paint the whole world as, I hate men. I hate men. I don't even want to be with them. And this softens the heart when they see a man grieve, because for many of them, they were dumped afterwards. They were abandoned. They had that sense of absolutely no support. And they think that the man doesn't care, doesn't give a crap about anything they suffered. So when they see a man grieving, it just changes their perception of men. And we need to change perceptions when there's such a war going on, you know? So that's one thing. The other thing is that, of course, it happens in a relational context. It's not the woman's issue. It happens in the most deeply personal space of a woman's sacred womb, that they're one in that moment. And that needs some healing. The other thing, not just healing, but that's where men need to come, grandparents need to come. And there's a lot in a group process, at least with Rachel's Vineyard, and I'm sure with a Bible study, that there's a sort of kind of a transference that happens where someone's going to be the age that your child would have been, that someone's going to be the age your mother was. And that those good feelings, the love and compassion that is elicited in these group processes is just extraordinary. And so it can heal other relationships just by having a good image of a mother who's grieving, or a grandmother who's grieving, when you thought your mom would never feel that way or she'd be angry at you. You know what I mean? So, and then people who've lost child that's younger, they can become very motherly to the other ones, or fatherly if there's a father there. And it's just so beautiful, because these are experiences. When you have a new experience, it leads to new learning, a different perception, a change of viewpoint, to just know that there's tenderness in a man or a father when maybe you got kicked out of the house by your parents. But I'll always encourage, if a woman's wounded, that I encourage the couple, because part of having an abortion is learning to be all alone and in the aftermath as well. So to have someone help to shoulder and bear the burden with her of the loss and the grief. And we don't recommend you go back to your old boyfriend, especially if you're married or in another, but you can invite that person to come to a Rachel's Vineyard retreat that you're in a relationship, to be a support to you as you grieve. In fact, spouses are invited to spiritually adopt the lost child at the end of our memorial service. So they can come on the whole retreat, or they could come into that memorial service and be able to stand up. And we've had so many people just spontaneously stand up in the middle of the memorial service that came to support someone else, but then grieve, other secrets have come forward because they realize of their own loss, and they might want to come back, or that might be enough for them in that moment. So it's just always a surprise what God does, but it's beautiful to have all these relationships, mirror other ones or practice with them, so that when they go home, they have more courage to speak up, share their thing, and ask for the support that they need. Because I think dismantling the secret is really important, especially among loved ones, so you can be loved through that, so you can be supported. Nothing's worse than a secret. And my little last point here is that when I first did my first groups, I saw that post-abortion healing was kind of causing problems in marriages, because you go through such a big transformation and you go back to the same person. And so if you're going to go through that transformation, bring the spouse along, bring the boyfriend along, because it can only improve the level of support you have. And
right. And Theresa, just a follow up before I go to Dr. Shuping on that point. Very often, a woman has had an abortion when she was in high school or college. Now she went on to marry a totally different person, and maybe eventually has told that person, "Oh, when I was younger, I had an abortion." And that's what you're saying, is it's okay to bring this husband now into that retreat, or even just come on the final day, because like you just said, they're going to come back all bubbled up about this experience. But then their current spouse, who wasn't involved in the abortion, kind of feels not understanding and left out. I guess what you're saying, right? So therefore, it would be important to help them come with you kind of along this journey. Yes?
Yeah, and to dismantle that secret, because the secrets cause so much shame. And when she's ambivalent about motherhood, when she's, afraid to get pregnant, when she has a postpartum depression, like these are all things that happen when there isn't support in that previous loss. We know that, that also there's an increase in miscarriages. One study from Japan said 200% increase. And there's reasons for that, but we don't need to go into them, but about the incompetent cervix and whatnot. But like these things can become tragedies, fertility issues later. You don't want that to be a secret. You know, we've had couples come on retreat before they get married as a engagement thing, because you want to experience that full embrace that you know everything about me and you love me, just like we want to feel with God. So when you try to hide that thing, which a lot of women do, or they're afraid that the guy would get angry and jealous and get mad. Well, I'd rather know that before I got married than after, you know, because you might need his support as life moves on and things happen.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Burke. And now, Dr. Shuping, as a psychiatrist and your experience, what can you say about this dynamic of men and women trying to heal together?
Pretty much what has already been said, but I would just reiterate that I've seen married couples where even one couple that comes to mind, grandparents, and looking back on an abortion that happened decades before, and they finally got able to heal with each other, that there were things that had been unsaid, and they're like, what, you thought that, or you felt that, or this, you know, and they're finally able to talk about it for the first time and discover it and heal together. And it's just been beautiful when I see couples together like that. There may be reasons in a particular marriage, maybe it's not good for them to do the retreat together. It's not one size fits all, but I have just seen very beautiful things happen when couples go through it together. But we've also seen where women and men, maybe they come by themselves, and it's always good, whatever happens. But certainly the healing, as Dr. Theresa was saying, between, you know, when you've got a group of women and a man is there, one or two men, usually, in my experience, I haven't had like equal balance, that you may have more women, but still some men come. But it's always good because the women get to see that a man grieves also, and it makes them, it helps them to let go of their bitterness, thinking, okay, we didn't understand at the time, we're sorry. And they experience that too, you know, that it does help them let go. Yeah.
Yeah. And one time, you know, I've also facilitated on Rachel's Vineyard retreats, and one in particular, it was all women and one guy. And, you know, I was saying, oh, okay, let's see how this is going to work. Well, after all the women told their stories, then this gentleman told his story. And at the end of his story, he was like a mess. He was crying and sobbing. And then he stood up and said to the women, you may not be with the gentleman who got you pregnant and maybe coerced you or pushed you to abort that baby, but I'm here to tell you right here and now, on behalf of them, I apologize to you for the way you were treated and forced into that abortion, because that's what I did to my girlfriend, and I deeply regret it. And I'm apologizing to all of you. Well, you had to see the explosion that happened on that retreat, the hugging, the tears flowing. And I'm sure Theresa Burke and Sheila could comment on that, because sometimes that dynamic of a guy there, it helps the women to kind of forgive, like to calm down over their hatred. And then one final question, I know we're going a little bit over, but the questions are just pouring in, is that someone asked, what about a mother and father, or especially a mom, who took her daughter for an abortion? That, you know, and then can they come together on the retreat or on the Bible study? Do you ever have that, a mother-daughter doing it together? I'm going to give both Sheila and Dr. Burke just 1 minute to respond to that, because I'm already over time, but this is too important to not answer these questions. So go ahead. First, Dr. Burke, mother and daughter.
Absolutely. That can absolutely happen. And what I love about the group is that when the mom who says, what's wrong with you? I had an abortion. I'm fine with it. And she can't get over it. But to see all the other women there breaks the denial, because you could say something's wrong with you. But then when you see all these other women experiencing very profound, they get in touch with their own feeling. But it's easy when if you're responsible for that pain, to want to push it away and not take responsibility and be in not just a denial, but almost a demand that you're okay, because I don't want to feel bad about myself or even remember what I did, because she was proud of it. And she thought, I did it. This is what we do. You're not, and that was a married woman. a married woman with 2 kids. So it just crushed her. She couldn't function. And her mom got engaged in the counseling. And then I said, come with her, because she wanted her mom to come and see. She could have done it, but she wanted her mom to understand that mom's going to be babysitting, and babysitting her children. And she just couldn't reconcile all of that. She just couldn't reconcile the loss. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. And Sheila, what can you say about a Bible study? Have you ever had a mother-daughter combo going through that, who the mother took the daughter for the abortion?
Yes, that's a very common scenario. And I agree with Dr. Theresa. Absolutely, it can happen. The one time that this happened, and it was an absolute disaster, and I had a red flag and I didn't stop it, was a mom talked her daughter into coming with her. And the daughter was like, I don't want to. I don't want to do this with you. And she was like, no, this will help us heal. It'll bond us. It will, and the whole time they're talking to me, and I kind of put it on them, like, you guys got to come together, or, do this separately. It's up to you guys. But she talked her daughter into coming, and it ended up just being an absolute disaster. So just make sure, if they are coming, that one of them is not resistant and being talked into it, because you want the people there who want to be there, not the ones that feel like this is being shoved on me. But absolutely, it's beautiful when it works. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you all. I mean, this was amazing. I have never done this before, to have all these ladies together with me, experts. So I want to say a big thank you, of course, to Sheila Harper, my dear friend from Save One, Dr. Theresa Burke from Rachel's Vineyard, Dr. Martha Shuping, psychiatrist and expert, who has given so much of herself. And when I think about you, Dr. Shuping, boy, you could have had a big fat practice and be very successful, but you decided to take a deep dive into abortion. So we know that has its consequences, let's put it that way, in the medical field. So I want to thank all of you. And I just want to remind everybody, a simple website to remember, abortionforgiveness.com. Just go there, put in your zip code, and you'll see where's the nearest Rachel's Vineyard retreat, where's the nearest Save One study program. And for the clergy watching, please, if you got anyone preparing for marriage, you've got to bring up the topic of, and do it this way. You don't have to say the A word, because one was over, say abortion. Say, have either of you had any pregnancy losses in your past? And see what the response is. Because if it's not dealt with in marriage prep, you're going to let them go down that aisle, and it's going to head to disaster if they have not faced healing from a prior abortion. Can I get a nod, all you ladies? You agree with that one, right?
Yes.
We get an amen on that one, right? I just wish we could get every pastor in the United States of America who prepares couples to go down the aisle could get them healed from abortion first, because it just will alleviate so many disasters that can happen later on. So I want to, questions are still coming in. So I don't know. I guess we may have to do this again, not just during Abortion Recovery Month, because the need for healing is so great. But brothers and sisters, you have to be the ambassadors. Don't let here all the wonderful conversations that happen stay here. Spread the message. And my producer will be sending out information. Help me send it out to all of you. This will be on YouTube. You'll get to, for those who couldn't tune in or missed part of this show, you'll get to rewatch it on YouTube. So again, thank you all. God bless you all. And brothers and sisters, I hope you learned something, because you know what? It's up to you to spread the message. Because when you think it out there, the abortion industry, Planned Parenthood, and all these other people who support it, they make it sound like it's no big deal. And my experts here can tell you tonight, there's so many people out there hurting, and the behaviors we see going on right now, women screaming and yelling and angry. In fact, I'm going to give you a little tip here. Over the weekend, I was watching Fox News, no surprise, Janet, Fox News, and Rachel Campos Duffy, you know what she said? She was commenting on all the screaming that's going on and yelling and hatred with especially women, especially some of these congresswomen you see who are screaming and like banshees, right? You know what she said? She goes, the reason all these women are screaming and yelling is because they have had an abortion in their past. They're post-abortive and they need help. I was cheering from my living room. Yay! Someone finally said that they need help. So brothers and sisters, you learned nothing else tonight to know that abortion is not a giant eraser that takes care of that problem. It creates all these other problems, but we're here for you. There's no such thing as the unforgivable sin. Go to abortionforgiveness.com. Help someone get healed today. Thank you tonight for joining us. God bless all. And let's just heal a wounded nation that we have. Okay? Thank you. And God bless.